All right, let's try some Ralph S. Mouse again. Don't know where the cats are, so art. All right. So we left Ralph last time where he was feeling a little bit bad because he had a motorcycle and his friends and cousins and brothers and sisters and stuff did not, and they were calling him selfish. And so he was feeling a little bit bad about that. So here we go, chapter 2, Ralph's decision. After his strenuous night of riding through puddles, fending off relatives, trying to repair his motorcycle, and rebuilding his nest, Ralph napped soundly. He was awakened by an angry voice of Mr. Minch, the hotel manager, speaking to Mrs. Bramble, Ralph's mother. "Look at that floor," Mr. Minch was saying. "Disgraceful." "It certainly needs a good cleaning," agreed Mrs. Bramble. "Where's Matt?" demanded Mr. Minch. "Keeping the lobby clean is his responsibility." Worried because his friend was in trouble, Ralph peered out from under the clock and saw Matt, unaware of the manager's displeasure, entering the office. "Morning, Mrs. Bramble, Mr. Minch," Matt said. "Sure is pretty outside with the sun shining on the snow and that sky so blue." Mr. Minch ignored his greeting. "Matt," he said, his voice was stern, "take a good look at this floor. Dried mud on the linoleum, mouse droppings all over the place. It's a disgrace. And the whole lobby smells, well, mousy." "It's funny," thought Ralph. "I don't smell a thing." Matt looked at the floor. "Well, I'll be jiggered," he said. "How do you suppose that happened? It looked clean enough last night." "Liar," thought Ralph with affection. He knew Matt would never say a bad word against mice. "Never mind how it happened," said Mr. Minch. "Exactly what do you plan to do about it?" "Now take it easy, Mr. Minch," said Matt. "I'll have this place cleaned up in no time." "See that you do," said Mr. Minch. "This may not be a first-class hotel, but there's no excuse for a dirty lobby." "I realize that late arrivals often leave muddy floors, but mouse droppings? If I continue to find signs of mice, I shall have to let you go." "That's not fair," thought Ralph, who did not want to lose his loyal friend. Matt had been part of the hotel for as long as he can remember, much longer than either Mr. Minch or Ryan's mothers. Most employees didn't stay long at the Mountain View Inn. "Yes, sir." The cheer had gone out of Matt's voice. Ralph, who came from a long line of intelligent mice, knew that most of his relatives had learned to avoid traps and poisons. He was not sure about his littlest relatives, however. What was left after traps and poisons? Cats. Ralph shuddered at the thought of bloodthirsty cats stalking his little innocent brothers and sisters and cousins. The littlest ones, who always became entangled in the carpet fringe, would be the first to go. A skier who was looking at headlines on the newspaper on the rack near the door overheard the conversation between Matt and Mr. Minch. "There's a new electronic mouser on the market," he volunteered. "It makes a noise only mice can hear and drives them out of the building in a hurry." "I'll look into it. Something has to be done around here," said Mr. Minch, and returned to his office. Ralph shuddered at the thought of electronic mousers sending his family screaming into the snow to freeze to death. Mrs. Bramble wanted to say something pleasant to Matt after the unhappy incident. "One thing about the ski crowd," she remarked. "They may track in snow, but they don't bother to drip dry a lot of clothes and clutter up the bathrooms." With that cheerful remark, she went upstairs to count sheets and towels in the linen room. More like a fourth-rate hotel, if you ask me," muttered Matt, who had seen better days. He dragged out the vacuum cleaner. "Old Minch will never spend a nickel on an electronic mouser. How am I supposed to get rid of mice? Say, 'Please, mousies, go away,' so old Mr. High and Mighty won't throw me out in the cold?" As the vacuum cleaner roared back and forth across the carpet, Matt looked so worried, Ralph began to worry too. What if the old man really did lose his job in the middle of the winter? Where would he go? And what would Ralph do without his friend? He noticed that in spite of his worries, Matt did not run the vacuum cleaner near the hems of the curtains, a favorite hiding place for mice. Ralph sat back on his haunches and began his morning grooming. As he wiped his paws over his whiskers, he suddenly had a most unhappy thought. He was to blame for Matt's trouble. If he had been an ordinary mouse without a motorcycle, all his little relatives would have not come flocking to the library. They would still live upstairs, snug in their nests behind the baseboards, growing fat on the crumbs from all the food skiers smuggled into their rooms to avoid dining room prices. Ralph paused in his washing to think. If he moved back upstairs, his relatives would follow. But what about his motorcycle? He couldn't leap up a flight of stairs with it. Neither could he leave it behind. Never! If he left it behind, some of his older cousins would grab it and stay in the lobby, at least until they wore it out or wrecked it, and the younger relatives would stay too. What was Ralph to do? He was still turning over this problem in his mind when the clock above him ground and groaned and managed to boing out 8 boings. Right on schedule, Ryan came running into the lobby, warmly dressed to go to the mysterious place known as school. He was carrying his books and a lunch in a backpack. Ralph admired his waffle stompers. The muddy floor caught Ryan's attention. He studied the mud, and when Matt left to fetch a mop, he got down on the floor in front of the clock and pressed his cheek against the floor so he could speak to Ralph. "I saw your tire tracks," he whispered. "I bet you had a great time last night." "Yeah, except for a bunch of little mice," said Ralph. There's the picture. "What's the matter?" Ryan asked him. "You sound unhappy." Suddenly, Ralph knew what he had to do. He thought fast, which was easy for him. Mice often had to think fast to survive. "Look, Ryan," he said, "I'm in trouble, and I don't have time to tell you about it. Just take me and my motorcycle with you, and don't ask questions." "To school?" Ryan was surprised. "Come on," begged Ralph. "We're friends, aren't we?" "Sure, we're friends," agreed Ryan. "But there's no time for buts," said Ralph, who knew Ryan would soon have to leave to catch the school bus. "Well, okay, if you say so," said Ryan. But by the time okay had passed Ryan's lips, Ralph was wheeling his motorcycle with his crash helmet dangling from the handlebars. "I'll stay out of sight," he assured his friend. "There must be some place I can live at school." All right, we're going to stop there. Have a great day. Go outside, play in the sunshine, and I'll see you tomorrow.